how to use equivalence to close any sale in 5 minutes flat. Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Persuasion Show with your host Bushra Azhar. And today we are talking about equivalence, but not just equivalence, but how to use equivalence to close any sale in 5 minutes flat. How does that sound? Sounds good? Yes? You know what? It's a good thing that you cannot respond to me, because maybe if you do respond to me, like, whatever, and then all my enthusiasm will just go away and it's never good. You don't want to see me if I'm not excited about something. I'm an utter and total, complete, full-on bitch. So yes, it's a good thing you cannot respond to me. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume that you are jumping up and down with excitement because of what I'm going to teach you. Let's get started. Why does equivalence work? Actually, you know what? The better question here is not why does equivalence work. The better question here is what exactly is equivalence? And I wish someone had asked me that question, but then, you can't ask me that question is because I never allowed you, gave you the chance to ask me that question. Yeah, I know, I'm weird like that. Now, I will tell you anyway. Equivalence is a nifty little trick to get people instantly interested in what you have to say. And it works so well because it's a brilliant way to paint a mental picture quickly and without going through a lot of fuzzy generic words. So what mental image do you get when I say Uber for lawnmowers, or Airbnb for cars, or LinkedIn for musicians, or Tony Robbins for tropical monkeys? Okay, that was a joke. There is no Tony Robbins for tropical monkeys, not that I'm aware of. And it's so weird that I had to explain that was a joke. But yeah. So what happens is when I say these phrases, you get a clear idea of what I'm saying, right? You know that Uber for lawnmowers means that this business basically allows people to sublet their lawnmowers when they aren't using them. You also know that LinkedIn for musicians will be a specialized professional social media platform for musicians. And if you aren't on it, basically you aren't a musician. Not really, but you get my point. That is what equivalence is all about. Now, when to use equivalence? And that really is the million-dollar question. Now, even though you will be really tempted to use equivalence in every available situation, but I'm going to tell you when exactly is the best way to use it. But before I do that, I want to tell you the latest story where I fell a victim to equivalence. And it's so funny because I know what they're doing, but it still works. And that's the beauty of using psychology on people. Even when they know that you're doing it, it still works. So I went out, I promise I wasn't even looking for it, but I went out to get some makeup and I saw this product that, and basically the description on the product was, it didn't even say it just said, push-up bra for your eyebrows. And I am the sucker who fell for it head first. So please slap me silly and call me a sucker, but I fell for it. But beautiful use of equivalence. Now, to know when you should use it, first of all, you should use it when you want to get your point across quickly, especially if you are in a crowded industry. It really allows you to stand out. So there are so many eyebrow products out there, but the reason I did not fall for any of them and fell for this one because they not only got their point across very quickly and efficiently, but they also allowed their product to stand out amongst many other similar products. Now, also use equivalence when your business is a bit complex and hard to explain. So maybe you are, and I remember I did this elevator pitch for one of my clients when I was just starting out. And she basically said, she works with parents who struggle with difficult children and managing children and behaviors and mannerisms. And you know what? I said, you know what? Who you are a modern day Mary Poppins. And that was beautiful because instead of going on and in detail and talking about what you do, if you can use an equivalence, that will kind of get the point across instantly. It is a beautiful thing. Also, if you're talking to someone who has no clue to the subject matter, you're talking about I don't know, you're talking about chakras with me, for example. I literally do not have any idea what chakras are. So if you're talking to me, you would probably it would be best if you could use an equivalence point to get the point across to me. So, and also when you want to stand out in a crowded marketplace amongst many other businesses. So these are the 4 situations where you should be using equivalence. There are a lot of people who overdo it. So be a little bit careful with using it. Only use it when you really have these 4 situations, and it will all fall into perfect harmony, because it is, again, it's a beautiful thing. Now, the very first thing that you need to be aware of if you decide to use equivalence is to use a frame of reference. Now, the beauty of equivalence is that it gets the point across very, very quickly and efficiently, but you also need to be really careful about the frame of reference you use. If you talk about Uber, for example, in what place? In Spain, for example, there are no Ubers in Spain. So maybe they're aware of what Uber is, but they may not get it as anyone else who's actually dealt with Uber or uses Uber on an ongoing basis would actually do. So your frame of reference is super important. So how do you choose a frame of reference that actually works? First thing, absolutely use a really familiar frame of reference, something that is really something that will instantly create a mental picture. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to dig through their memory archives to come up with that frame of reference. It should be instant. It should come out instantaneously. And that really means that you should be very careful about cultural and cultural association. So it's funny because I have this beautiful person who works with me. Her name is Tara. And once I wrote her bio and I said, she's like the genie in I Dream of Jeannie. And everyone loved it except Tara, because she's like, I have no idea what Dream of Jeannie is. And I was like, really? I'm sorry, but you need to look her up because she's awesome. So, but the mistake that I did here, I used a frame of reference that she was not familiar with. And that really basically kills your equivalence. So make really positive that you're using a familiar frame of reference. Next up, make sure that the reference has a positive association. You don't want to use a reference that has a negative connotation, a negative association, because if you're using it to talk about your product or yourself, you want to make sure that everywhere, all across the board, it has a positive association. You don't want to use something that has a negative association at any level. So please make sure you are careful about that. Also make sure that the reference has the right association. So if you are trying to position yourself as wise, for example, as wise and as intelligent and as like someone who guides others, then you may want to use the reference of Yoda from Star Wars. But if you are talking about someone who is, someone who is rebellious, someone who's breaking the norm, someone who is kind of changing the mindset of people and kind of standing out as someone who is going to take a stance on her point of views, then maybe you want to use Princess Leia. So even though both have positive associations, it's important to use the right association. Whatever you're going for, make sure it has the right association. Lastly, don't choose a reference that has more than one predominant associations. So if you are using a character that has more than one predominant associations, a character that is both considered wise and rebellious, then it could send mixed messages. So use a frame of reference that has one predominant association and it's across the board, same association everywhere you use it. So do not choose a frame of reference. In this case, I could give you the example of Transformers, for example. So if you want to use the point of reference or frame of reference of Transformers from the movie, you need to understand that even though they transform, they are shape changes, they're also pretty destructive, right? So just make sure you use something that has one predominant association. Now, The next and the most important thing is, how do you actually use equivalence for the win? So if you've chosen your frame of reference, you're pretty sure you want to use it, but now how do you actually use it? How do you actually use it in a way that gets people to see you, gets people to kind of, get the point across really, really, really quickly? This is what you need to do. The very first thing that you need to do is to look at the best global brands that are out there, right? You're trying to find the right equivalence for your brand. So look at the best global brands that are out there. And you can look at the best global brands for 2016 ranking by Interbrand. That will actually tell you the best global brands out there. And those are brands that are, that are kind of household names. So people are familiar with those global brands and they stand for a certain thing. Then also look at the best movie characters. And I'm going to give you links to this, but the 100 greatest movie characters, there is a list by Empire Online. You can take a look at the best movie characters. You can also take a look at the best fictional characters. And the weaklings.com actually publishes the 50 greatest literary character names of all times. And you can use some of those. Now, a lot of people have started using Harry Potter or Hermione or Voldemort as references, because even though they are fictional characters, they are becoming really, 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 really common. And that really allows people to see what they stand for. Now, once you have that, take a look at whatever they are, whatever are the most common ones. The next step you need to do is to look at what they stand for, what those brands stand for, and how does it align with what you want to stand for, whatever your brand is. So maybe a brand stands for trust, or maybe there's a brand that stands for loyalty, or a person who stands for loyalty. In this case, it could actually be the Weasley brothers in Harry Potter's, right? They are all about loyalty and friendship. Longevity, so maybe you found a product or something in the top global brands that are all about longevity, right? They just last forever. And we know that we are talking about Duracells. They're all about longevity. So you could call yourself, for example, I'm the Energizer Bunny of something, because we're talking about longevity. Also friendship, a premium positioning. So if you want to use a frame of reference that's all about premium positioning, look at the brands that actually stand for premium positioning. Also look at brands that are all about novelty, about something that's completely new, and kind of Apple innovation and novelty. Apple kind of falls into that brand positioning. Also pioneer, whoever is a pioneer, if you want to be positioned as a pioneer. Intellect and strategy, you could, or wisdom, for example, you could look at Yoda or any similar characters. You could also look at, if you're talking about intellect and intelligence, and kind of being a Hermione is one of those who could be one of those, kind of the intelligent bookworm kind of equivalence. You can also look at speed. In this case, it could be any of the top global courier companies. Priceless, which we all know stands for, MasterCards, because when I use the word priceless, that's what comes to mind. And it's beautiful because these brands they've taken their associations to the level where if I use the word innovation, Apple comes to mind. If I use the word priceless, MasterCard comes to mind. If I use the word speed, FedEx comes to mind. So it's beautiful how well they've taken their equivalence. And I know that in the book, To Sell is Human, this is referenced as a one-word pitch. It literally is a one-word pitch where you basically say the word and it immediately you think of that character or that global brand. So there you have it. This is your easy peasy way to use equivalence. And like I said, just be careful of using it. Use it in the right situation. Use it for your bios. Use it for your webinar pitches. Use it for when you're trying to introduce yourself in a networking situations. Use it to introduce yourself when you're giving a speech. You can use it in any situation, but make sure that your frame of reference is right and the equivalence or the association that you're using is positive, and that it actually gets the point across and not confuse the people further. Now that you have this, now that I've given you my best tips on how to use equivalence to close a sale in under 2 minutes, now you got to do something for me, because it's all about give and take, baby. Go to iTunes, leave me a review, give me a rating, tell me something that actually clicked for you in this episode. Also take a moment to share this with other people, because come on people, everyone needs to know this shit, right? Also, go to thepersuasionshow.com where you can get your handy dandy worksheet to use with this episode. But you can also get my copy of The Ultimate Guide to Persuasion, which is also available on thepersuasionshow.com. It is the absolute best content you will ever get on using psychology of persuasion in your business. I will see you really soon with another episode. This is Bushra Azhar signing off, and I will see you really soon.